My name's Simon Bowler and this is how we make the knee braces for our oak frame projects. Welcome to the workshop as well. So what is a knee brace? If you've seen some of our other videos, you may well be familiar with what they are. If you haven't, here's a very brief explanation. So on an oak frame, generally speaking, you have support posts and a wall plate, which is another beam that connects the top of the posts. For wind bracing, to form some triangulation, we have a curved piece in here with tenons on the end that sit inside mortises in the post and the wall plate. And it's these pieces that we're going to focus our attention on today. So the first thing we need to look at is what we make them out of, and then we can look at the processes that each one goes through to turn it from what we start with into the finished article. So this is the raw material. This is what I buy to make the knee braces out of. They are 8" by 4" in section, 2.5 meters long. So generally speaking, we get 3 knee braces at 800mm long per piece. A couple of the ones we're going to make are going to be longer. We'll come back to that in a minute. So I buy these in bulk, 30 or 40 at a time, because we make a lot of knee braces for our projects. The first thing we're going to do to them is get eyes on all 4 sides of each piece and work out specifically which portion of each piece is going to best yield our knee braces. Is there anything on them that we want to try and eliminate, any knots or any big splits or anything like that? Generally just get to know our beams and build a relationship with them so that the portions that we're left with are the best possible portions. The other interesting thing about these is that they are heartwood free. So the beams that we use to make the oak frames are what's called box heart beams. I've talked about that in a previous video, but in short, it's the middle bit of the tree. The heart of the tree is kept in the middle of the beam. It's boxed in. These are the opposite. These are heart free. So if you look here, you can see the rings of the tree. It's been cut from the edge of the tree. There is no heartwood in these pieces that we use for our knee braces. So we're going to mark them up. Then we're going to go to the crosscut saw. So I've just got eyes on all 4 sides of this and I can see a couple of issues that we're going to avoid. That is a big ugly knot. Nobody wants that in their oak frame, so that is going to be avoided. But also here, there's another knot. This stick represents the long point to the long point of our knee braces. So if we place that on there, where the long points are going to be, mark them off, put our 45s on, that's the bit that's going to be on show. This bit here will form the tenon, as this bit will here, with the knot in it, so it's out of sight. We've also eliminated that knot and we're left with a nice clean piece that's going to be on show. That's the process that we go through with all of these. Just make sure we've got the best possible pieces out of each knee brace beam. 3 knee braces are going to come out of this one. We've set it out. We now know which areas we're going to be keeping. We're going to be keeping this area, that will remain on show. This will form a tenon. This is the next piece that remains on show. This will form 2 tenons. So we know now to cut it in the middle of those tenons. Once we've laid out all the rest of them, we get to visit the first power tool, which is the crosscut saw. So the marks that we've got on these beams now are accurate enough for the point that we're at within this knee brace making process. This is our workshop crosscut saw. It's a Bosch one, it's a space saving one. I'm not going to dwell too much on that at the moment because there's probably going to be a video in the future talking about all kinds of different tools in more detail. So we're going to cut this into smaller sections that are easier to work on now, and then we can look at how we square them up. So we've cut these down now into a more manageable size. These are still in the rough sawn format, so there's nothing to say that they are perfectly flat, straight or square. That's the next process. We have to start now inject a little bit of accuracy into these knee braces. So we're going to use the planer thicknesser, we're going to flatten them, and then we're going to square them. So that's the next job. So that took 2 passes over the top of the machine to flatten that. I know it's flat because there's no saw marks left. The other thing that pushing these over the top of the machine does is square them. The fence is set perfectly at 90 degrees to the table. So next time it goes over, I'm going to keep the flat side pushed up tight to the fence, and it will create a perfect 90-degree angle between the flat side and what is currently the bottom. That was the first side that went over. Then we squared this side to this side. And you can see we've now got 2 sides that we can use to work the other sides. They go under the machine to do that, but before we go under the machine, we've got the other knee braces to repeat that process on. A few planer laps run. The other function that this machine does is to make everything the same thickness. So we've got 2 sides that are 90 degrees to each other now. So we're going to reconfigure the machine and go underneath. And use it in this way. So previously we were pushing the pieces of timber across the top manually. In this configuration, it self-drives. It will drag the pieces of timber through. Because these are quite big and heavy and a little bit wet, sometimes you have to give them a little helping hand, a bit of a shove, but this will now reduce them all down to the same thickness in both dimensions using the first 2 sides as datums. Once we've done that, we've then got all the knee brace blanks exactly the same size in all dimensions. The accuracy increases. So these are now, having been through the machine many times, all the same thickness. So we've thicknessed them in 1 dimension. The top is still rough sawn, that plane is still rough sawn, so now they all need to be made the same in that dimension. It's no different to the process you've just seen. We're going to find the thickest one, set the machine to that, and send them all through, keep reducing them down until they all match. So that's the end of the planing and squaring process. What that leaves us with is, in this instance, 10 perfectly uniform in terms of thickness, height and squareness pieces of timber. That machine does a brilliant job of making things millimetre perfect. Now through that process, obviously we've lost those original pencil lines that we put on. They were only there to give us a guide whilst we cross-cut the big beams. What we're going to do now is mark on very accurately where the shoulders for the tenons are going to go. Then we can get the tenoning machine out, which is one of my personal favourite power tools. Accurate lines need a sharp pencil. That is not a sharp pencil. I've got a pencil sharpener here, a little bit oversized, but you know, use what you've got. Better. So this is the stick we used to set out the original lines. We're going to use the same one again. This tells us the long points of each shoulder, there and there. Now, I'm going to talk about this one because it's interesting because of that knot. If you remember, the original piece of rough sawn timber had a knot in it, and I explained that we were going to avoid them. This is what I mean. That is the line that dictates the shoulder of our tenon. All of this will be removed with the tenoning machine and then, in the fullness of time, inserted into a mortise. The bit that's left is perfectly clear. So all those lines square round perfectly. They're the shoulders. We've got a few more to mark up now. This is a very specific piece of kit. It's a handheld tenoning machine. It's made by a brand called Mafell. The model number is NFU50. Essentially, it's a handheld circular saw, but with a difference. The blade, rather than being 4 or 5 millimeters thick, is that thick. 55 millimeters thick. So it takes a lot of material out very, very quickly, and this is what we use to cut our tenons. Knee braces all marked up. This is the first one we're going to cut. Let's set to. Hopefully that demonstrates how effective and efficient that particular machine is. It took me quite a while to get my head around buying it. It was quite expensive, but my goodness me, the amount of time it saves is astonishing. We're going to cut the ends of this tenon on the bandsaw. That happens at the same time as cutting the curve, which we will come to after we've put tenons on all the rest of the knee braces. So there's going to be quite a sizable pile of sawdust presents itself imminently. So that's pretty much all of the material removed now to form the tenons on the end of each knee brace. The last couple of bits come off on the bandsaw, but when they visit the bandsaw, we cut the curve in at the same time. To mark the curve, we use this. This is our curve bow, so we're going to explain a little bit about this and how it works. Curve bow then. It's very, very simple. It consists of a thin piece of timber and a piece of string that pulls the timber tight to make it into a curve, exactly like a bow. So we only like to curve one side of our knee braces, the inside. We like to come in from the long point, about 50 millimeters from each end, and we use this to draw around. We do like to simplify things as much as we can, and I can't think of a simpler way of marking curves. So on the bandsaw, the curve comes out, the ends of the tenons are removed to leave us with the piece in the middle that we want. After that, it's a case of a quick sand up, and these are done. So now we've got one cut, we can use that as our template for all the rest of them, run them through the bandsaw, quick belt sand up, and as I said earlier, we're done. So that is the last process, a quick lick over with some aggressive sandpaper in the belt sander. Those blue marks were from the machining processes. When fresh sawn oak touches steel or cast iron, it does leave a blue stain, but the belt sander takes care of that. So once we've done that to the rest of them, we're officially done. So that is all of the processes that we use to make these knee braces for our oak frames. As always, they suit us, they suit our projects, and they suit the equipment, tools and machinery that we have. What's interesting about these though, are that these aren't going out to one of my projects. These are going out to a very good friend of mine, a gentleman called Phil, who has a channel called A Proper Yorkshire Builder. He's also over on Instagram with the same handle as well. So obviously, once you've subscribed to my channel, perhaps you'd be so kind and go and subscribe to his channel as well. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and I'll catch up with you on the next project.